Recently, the 5G causes COVID-19 conspiracy theory has gained popularity. I'm a radar engineer with a master's degree in telecommunication engineering and a teaching qualification in high school physics. Now that partially due to London Real the claim that 5G is causing COVID-19, it's extremely important to protect ourselves with a healthy understanding of the world around us. It's easy to write these conspiracy theories off as idiotic, but it's much more important to be able to counter false claims with factually correct counter-arguments than ad hominem. It's true that I am not at all an expert on immunology or virology, but I do a thing or two about telecommunication systems, and I can imagine that some of you might have questions regarding these claims that are made in these videos. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering where I specialized in telecommunication engineering, broadly speaking the study of how information can be transferred through the electromagnetic fields. I also have a qualification to teach physics at a high school level and have plenty of experience as a student assistant. I currently work at a company developing military radar systems where I work as an antenna engineer. What's the biggest difference between 4G and 5G other than speed? Data rate capacities are a dominant reason for switching to 5G. But the way this is realized is for one by going to different frequency bands where there is more available bandwidth. Another great change is that with higher frequencies come smaller wavelengths, which means that multiple antennas can be placed in a device, allowing for beam forming, better reception, aiming bundles. Please correct me if I am wrong, but aren't pilots the most exposed to higher levels of electromagnetic radiation of various sorts? And a study was conducted with a reasonably large sample size showing they were no more or less at risk than the general population for any risks associated? This comment is written quickly and dumbed down because I have a 2-year-old jumping on my head right now, lol. That is what at least this study seems to suggest. The levels of cosmic radiation are much higher, but still not high in absolute terms. At least nowhere near what smokers are exposed to in their lungs. So indeed, the fact that they don't have a significant increase in non-skin cancer-related cancers suggests that the level of cosmic radiation is still low. Why are people saying that 5 grams kills birds? Has there ever been any truth to this at all? I have not heard these stories personally. Maybe it's related to stories that the use of radio waves disrupts the biological compass that birds have. This is difficult to prove, but electrically speaking, these two are in very different domains. Biological transient, time-dependent effects are signals that travel in the order of milliseconds or slower. Microwave signals vary in the range of tens of nanoseconds. Typically, slowly varying systems don't respond to much faster changes. It's like trying to make someone swing on a swing set by pushing 1,000 times a second. It will hurt, but it will not make them swing. What makes you think you know more than someone who learned about it from a meme? Ha ha ha. Slightly off of your main topic, but I am a ship captain, and have a question that is perfect for a radar engineer. I often will get to a port or anchorage and notice the anchored or moored ships around me will just leave their radars on for seemingly no reason, and it bothers me. Apart from wear and tear on the equipment, I'm concerned about being surrounded by 20 ships with long-range radars spinning away and zapping everything around them. I know that the radiation is relatively low power, but being constantly exposed to it coming from multiple directions does make me wonder. How founded/unfounded are my concerns? It really depends on the types of radars they have turned on. Because the signals are very narrow in space and they rotate, you are exposed only to a little bit every time they pass you as a person. Also, energy drops by the distance squared. So if at 1 meter the signal strength is 100 watts/M2, then at 100 meters the signal strength is 0.01 watts/M2, etc. So very quickly there is very little of that power left. It doesn't matter if it's radar or 5G, the effects, if they are there, are comparable, and at this point there is no good quality evidence showing any effects of radio waves on biological life other than a slight elevation of temperature, which is often nothing compared to the heating caused by sunlight. Remember that warm feeling on your skin? Sunlight is about 1000 watts/M2, radio waves a tiny fraction of that. So if there is anything you should be worried about on the sea, then it's UV radiation giving you skin cancer. So that would be my answer. But let me say this, it's completely fine to have concerns as long as they are not disproportionate. We have no correlation between radio waves and any harmful effects. We do know about the dangers of sunlight, so always keep a level head. Hope that helps. Why do so many people believe the 5G conspiracy? The 5G conspiracy builds on a proposed correlation that every time and everywhere we introduce new radio wave technologies there are pandemics and epidemics. When you look into the proposed correlation, of course there is nothing there, because the behavior of the spread of COVID-19 follows exactly the spread of a virus, not sickness from radiation exposure, and viruses have been around forever. It's a nice surface level idea, but below the surface there is nothing substantial there. And sadly people don't often go past the surface. Why are millimeter waves considered dangerous? That's a good question. What I think freaks people out is the unknown. We don't have much experience with millimeter waves in commercial settings. They have been used in telecom for satellites and in military applications, but most people would have never been exposed. I think people are also worried about the fact that they get transferred into heat more by the body. Due to a smaller wavelength there could be also more localized effects. As a general mobile user, what would be the benefit to switching to 5 grams? Like, all I do on my phone is browse Reddit, stream Spotify, and watch YouTube, and I already have a very good experience doing that. Is there really any noticeable benefit for me to switch? I typically use my computers for my more taxing tasks. I remember the switch from 3 grams to 4 grams being pretty minor for my uses. Wow, that's a good question. It could be that eventually it could mean that less battery drainage if 5G is much more efficient as long as you keep your data rate the same. It could be better security. It's hard to say. Belgium originally stalled and have now passed proposals for a 5G network, due to health concerns. Was this stalling warranted in any way? Is there any evidence to suggest health risks exist? I have not seen any evidence of health risks. But there hasn't been much research, so demanding more proper research is something I am for. There have also been concerns about security risks since Huawei is a big company producing 5G hardware. So maybe not warranted, but definitely not a bad choice. I have read a lot of the years and it really annoys me when there could be a real danger with 5G. You have idiots saying it's linked to Corona and calling it a weapon. Therefore any talk about 5G potentially being dangerous is laughed at. Which, when you look at history, is something that has happened. Look at when tobacco was found to be bad for you, but if you were one to agree so soon, everyone would think you were making it up. It's like the alien conspiracy, whether you believe it or not. If an actual person saw such a thing, they would be made fun of because that's how we've been led to think that way. We should all know corporations, government and media lies to us constantly. They all have a very close relationship, usually owned by the same people. What are the biggest companies in the world? Fossil fuel, agriculture, big pharma, etc. If they want you to believe their products are good, they will spend billions paying off governments, media to lie and look the other way. So why is it so hard to believe they wouldn't do it with 5G? Why are there videos of politicians talking with people who are wanting to give us 5G, where they admit it's never been tested? This stuff is not faked. WHO have yet to confirm it's safe and won't publish their findings till 2022. So why spend billions putting it everywhere possible when it might not be safe? Probably cause they can pay their way through any independent study and change the facts to their needs. It's like American Cancer Society website recommending foods which have been proven to be carcinogenic as part of a healthy diet. Very important question here. Thanks for asking. You are absolutely right. There have been deep conspiracies, as with the tobacco company and with the animal industry, as I would personally argue. Here is why I think that 5G is different. Most of the conspiracies, like with the smoking causes lung cancer, have been accompanied with data showing very direct and clear mechanistic explanations and strong epidemiological data to back that up. There haven't been equivalent studies from the telecom world. There are some speculated mechanistic explanations, but the studies that support these mechanisms are often very weak. Besides that, you see a lot of work coming from independent researchers that have no ball in the game, that show no link. We know a lot about how electromagnetic waves work, and nothing about them suggests to us that there is anything to worry about. There is just a very large lack of substance. With other conspiracies this was often not the case. You would see alarming papers followed by other studies that have obvious flaws that show contrary findings. From what I understand, the concern with 5G is not that it is necessarily dangerous, but that there simply hasn't been enough research done to understand the potential long-term effects. Knowing what we know now about 5G, is it responsible to continue rolling out the technology in your opinion? It's true that there hasn't been long-term studies, and I think it's okay to have some. But electrically speaking, besides some absorption differences depending on the molecules, 5G isn't anything different from 4G regarding its effects. Or 3G or television for that matter. So the question is, will more exposure to slightly smaller wavelengths do anything significantly different? And the answer to that question is that there is no reason to believe it will. Whatever effect it may have, it's nothing compared to the effects of UV light and skin cancer, for example, and most people don't worry nearly enough about that. So we shouldn't stop rolling it out, in my opinion. Reasons to be careful with it are security risks, because Huawei can be controlled by the Chinese government. So those risks are to be taken very seriously when implementing their systems. Is it true that 5G has not been through any independent testing to ensure it is safe? I'm not aware of all available research out there, but I have seen studies that look at the biological effects of signals that are comparable to what you might see with 5G, and depending on the paper you see effects or you don't. But in my experience, all papers showing effects have a terrible technical setup. A very good paper I saw with a very proper setup showed no effects. 5G causing COVID-19 is obviously BS, but does 5G kill the bees and other wildlife though? There is no reason to believe it does. Global warming and factory farming is the biggest threat, in my personal opinion. How much are you being paid to shill for big 5 grams, and is it true that 6 grams will cure coronavirus but cause spontaneous HIV? Careful. Nowadays you can't go crazy enough that people don't wonder if you're serious. Facts. It seems like the farther out there you get, the more people think you're onto something.